Welcome viewers to part 4 of my lecture on the Cold and Bough. Today we begin with the antiquity of belief in the transmigration of the soul. Now, in Old Testament studies, this is typically attributed to the Greeks. Okay, the Israelites learned about the transmigration of the soul through contact with Greek religion, and particularly Pythagoras. Frazer argues that it is a common belief among primitive peoples that gods should live and die like mortals because their cultures do not possess the concept of eternal duration. Now, this is generally wrong. Because not only is this concept of eternal duration found in the ancient Israelite religion, it is also found in the pagan religion of the Eucharites. The example of why this is wrong comes down to us from the Ugaritic texts, unknown to Frazer in his time, and the story of the Witch of Endor in 1 Samuel can be used as proof of Hebrew belief in the transmigration of the soul, and in remnants of a cult of ancestors, which are derived from the Rephaim text. Another Ugaritic text unknown to Frazer during the time he wrote his work. The use of the terms savage and barbarian and imperialistic logic. Although it is certainly natural to call Frazer racist and sexist, there are still instances in his writing where he successfully diverts his argument away from simple bigotry and toward the idea of unity from a shared savage background of all peoples. Even though this too is bigoted by modern standards, in its time, this idea of a common heritage proven by the use of classical literature, Virgil's Aeneid, was revolutionary. Frazer shows clear awareness in the following passage of the detrimental effect of colonialist ideology on historical observations. The Maria, or the name of the human victim sacrificed by the Khan of Bengal, was believed by these people to have special powers in his body to make crops grow, and which could be passed from one generation to the next. Frazer responds, therefore, that these powers differentiate the nature of this particular type of sacrifice from the much more common type, which is due to placating the wrath of a deity. As a result, this ritual itself directly causes the fertility of the land by permission of the earth goddess, called alternatively Taripenu or Barapenu, rather than forcing the hand of the goddess herself to cause fertility in the land as a result of her placation. Frazer further notes that it was the European background of Major J. Campbell who wrote the account of the expedition to the Khan of Bengal, which caused them to misidentify the nature of the sacrifice as such. This early awareness of the cultural bias produced by European imperialist ideology in Frazer's writing represents therefore a unique exception among the norms of his scholarly contemporaries. Frazer's own comment, habituated to the latter idea of sacrifice as an offering made to a god for the purpose of conciliating his favor, European observers are apt to interpret all religious slaughter in this sense, and to suppose that wherever such slaughter takes place, there must necessarily be a deity to whom the slaughter is believed by the slayers to be acceptable. Thus, their perceived ideas unconsciously color and warp their description of savage rites. I'll repeat that last sentence. Thus, their perceived ideas unconsciously color and warp their descriptions of savage rites. Now, Frazer also argues that the savage does not differentiate between the certain classes of person considered taboo in his culture by the way of moral distinction. These classes of person include divine kings, chiefs, priests, murderers, menstruating women, women at childbirth, etc. He further argues that the danger believed by the savage to be found in these classes of people is imaginary, so that the pain it inflicts on the culture can be compared to the consequences of a phobia. The psychologization of the savage, as Frazer describes them, naturally places them in an inferior status, whose beliefs are not believed to have been built on rigorous argument or on a faith above superstition. But later on in the text, he establishes a common link in primordial antiquity between the civilized and the savage, so that he can still take pride away in some respect from the European imperialist. Frazer reasons by describing what he terms as barbarous philosophy that there is a just cause to respect the reasoning behind its arguments, because systems of sanctity and taboo were developed by great risk-takers in remote antiquity, who were brave enough to make the first hypotheses on which man's search for truth has since been constructed. Frazer concludes his chapter with the words, "Therefore, in reviewing the practices of ruder ages and races, we shall do well to look with leniency upon their errors as inevitable slips made in the search for truth, and to give them the benefit of that indulgence which we may one day stand in need of ourselves." Even though he holds on to the idea of linear progress with regards to natural laws, he still is willing to give permission to these types, to the idea of error in that teleology. No one is perfect, and Frazer makes that abundantly clear.